Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Alisha Braché, and this is Cosmic Gateway, and I'm absolutely delighted to have Rebecca Rose back here with me. It's been a while. We haven't sat down, I think, on my channel. It's been about a year since we've been able to
Oh
sit.
gosh. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe 6 months or so since doing the interviews with you on your channel. But welcome back. Thank you so much. We're in this new year of 2025, and I think I can speak for myself, but it's like, what is this year going to bring? What are some of the themes? But I know that recently you've had more memories start to come back to you, perhaps of a different theme, perhaps quite unexpected. So I'm really keen to dive in and get you to share what has been really potent and coming into the field for you. But I thought perhaps before we go into the specifics of that, just opening up because I know you and I have talked about off camera before how there's particular times throughout the year where there's a lot more SSP stuff in the field, a lot more memory, a lot more access. I don't know if we really put our finger on why that is, but it tends to open this gateway from the end of the year through to the beginning of the next year in this kind of few months. I know that's been the very heightened times for me. Um,
Mm.
and for me
Yeah.
personally, I, after, coming into the completion and the unraveling, it's not quiet, but it's not as in my face as what it would be usually. But it seems like that's been and I do apologize for the background noise. If you can hear it, I have a restless dog going in and out.
Oh, your doggy. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, let's talk about when new memories start to surface and how that happens and how it can sometimes take us, out of our realm of normal or what is possible and why and how that happens for you, especially.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here, by the way. I didn't realize it had been so long. I feel like we're always in each other's awareness somehow. But yeah, so the topic of memory, I guess we could start with that. Like it becomes, I'm fascinated with the workings of the subconscious mind, in part because I experienced like mind control programming that had me conditioned in certain directions, and it's through the subconscious that we can decondition and reprogram all that stuff for the better. Um, and as well, we can talk about, where is memory stored? Well, in some way, we could say it's through the subconscious that hangs on to things as well as the soma and the body. But in my case, I was contemplating this more deeply because, and I said to you before off camera that, you're going along, everything's fine. There's nothing really happening about the SSP memories. And then bam, there's something coming up. It's like, and like what I said, like, I've talked about twinning on your channel. Like I had no idea I had a twin until I knew, right? It was just so hidden for 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 so long, and the same is true with what I'm revealing today. And it's so interesting how, like for me, practice of meditation is really stilling the mind is what has revealed the contents of memory being divulged from the subconscious. That's been a pretty tried and true way to gain access to memory, although that's never why I started a meditation practice. I started meditating, 10 or 12 years ago because my life was falling apart and I needed to sit still and listen. Little did I know that it would open all my psychic abilities, lead me to the work that I'm doing now, and also to teach meditation and things that help open up your psychic ability. But with memory recently, and this one in particular, it's really hastened by my experience in the float tank. So I have a little luxury in my life. I go do sauna, IR, infrared sauna, and the flotation tank. You're in the dark and you're floating in a naked in a magnesium laden water. It makes you buoyant, and it's such like being in space, and it's so nurturing and loving. So I do that 3 times a week. It's 90 minutes in the float, and I've had massive, like we could say, downloads in the float tank because we're moving out of the beta brainwave state and into the alpha and theta brainwave states, which are very um, expansive to consciousness. So that's kind of what's been going on. The float has been revealing things that have been deeply hidden, like very emotional content. And I'm grateful. Like I had, again, I didn't go to start floating a year ago because I thought I would gain access to more memory, but in fact, that's also what happened. It's deeply restorative to the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's part of why I go. It's really restful, and it does connect me to the stars, to my light family, to the pods on the ship, which I feel, the Galactic Confederation ship, where I have an avatar, if you will, in a pod that allows me also to be down in this realm. And I've talked about that on the channel before. Um, Kind of being in the two worlds. And as I go through this timeline, as I get older, I feel more and more the integration, or conscious integration of that part of me. Like I'm there and I'm here and I can do both. I think for a
Hmm.
long time, I didn't realize that I could live well in both worlds, so to speak. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be both and such is the case as I find it now. So, that's all a preamble to the new information. I haven't even shared this on my own channel yet. It is new to the field. I've had just, I think, two interviews where I talked about this pretty briefly, but I came to understand that while I was on Mars as a weaponized asset, aka super soldier, I also had a child. So, and this will be useful to your or interesting to your audience because I know you talk a lot about the galactic children and what is all this about. And like before this memory came in, and I know I've talked to you about this off camera that, I've had galactic kids in my field that'll come in meditation like for the past probably more than a year that they've been presenting heavily to me. I'm like, you know what? If you want to get into this body, you better hurry. The timestamp is on me. Like, forget it. It's a little late. But yeah. So I'm like, oh, well, that explains something to me, about this kid I didn't know I had. So there's a lot. I mean, you've got to be wondering, okay, so what's all the backstory you need to tell us? There's so much context to this. I'm not sure where to start, but he's a little reptilian hybrid. So he was made not with only my DNA, but with my eggs. I don't know how many else of him are running around, honestly. So I first actually saw this little child as like a toddler in my meditation coming in, and I felt him on my right side. I saw him energetically or psychically on my right side, kind of touching the stones and crystals and, looking at my salt lamp on the altar space where I meditate every morning. Um, and I was like, okay. And he kept coming back every day. And I'm like, who's the kid? Like, I kind of was just brushing it away. Like, you need something. I'm not sure what it is. And I really don't care. I don't have time for this. I was uncharacteristically brusque with the presence of a new little being. He's pretty cute, by the way, but he's half human and half, the indigenous reptilians from Mars. And I want to clarify, not Draco. People automatically think Draco when you say reptilian in space. No. And then this was in mid November, and then it was a week later, I was in the float tank, and it's toward the end of 90 minutes of floating, and I drift over in the fetal position, and my mind is way out somewhere, and I feel the child, and my heart is like overwhelmed with love, and I just start sobbing, and I'm like crying very loudly in the tank. And I know he's my kid. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. How much more emotional complexity am I going to be asked to, integrate in these, SSP experience? Like, my God, are you trying to kill me? I mean, it's emotional for a mother to have this, in the complexity, like I said, is it dark? Is it light? What happened to me to create the kid? And the point is, Tyrion, my mate on the Galactic Confederation ship, says your journey is to love this child. And I said, T, what if I don't want to? I'm being my sassy human self. He's like, well, the mission may not complete. That's up to you. So it's sort of touching. He's like, kind of drop the storyline and just let your heart open. In other words, like the little child is a facilitator to me opening my heart more deeply, more adeptly, more wide to what's presenting, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Ooh, I feel that as I always do when you start to share, yeah, some really emotional content. Have you been able to understand more about the process of conception, how he was created, like what were the circumstances?
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe just a little backstory. I think your audience may or may probably is familiar, with the super soldier story and me ending up. I was twinned with. I mentioned Dean briefly. We were twinned at a naval station north of Chicago, Great Lakes naval station there, and sent to Mars, where we were both 9 years old at the time. By the time this happened, I had been fully built out psychically, energetically, electronically, technically, biologically enhanced as AKA super soldier. Um, and I was in my 20s at this point, and I had been out on patrol. One of the things that I was trained to do was just be base protection, defense force for some of the bases. And usually we'd be out in a unit. And for some reason, which I understand now, I had been kind of gone away from the group. I was in a patrol craft on my own, always tethered back to base because you have, you know, you basically have an implant or you're connected through consciousness back to base where they know where you are. You're not just going to disappear. But in this instance, I had wandered way off, and it was because the Draco were interfering remotely with my technology. The ship and myself are wed consciously so I can pilot it and control it, but they had intercepted, and I had kind of walked in, so to speak, flown in into a smuggling operation, the smuggling of souls or the soul scalping that was going on, run by the Draco, although they were running it remotely and using these short reptilians to inhabit their bodies. So anyway, this is a lot of backstory. I guess a long story short would be that they kind of pinned me down in the air. They disabled my technology psychically, so eventually I did crash. Um, and there's I mean, it's definitely the stuff of sci-fi, you could say, with a shootout in the sky and all this stuff going on. Now, I didn't realize that whole part about how I was shot down and why until maybe earlier last year. I feel maybe a year and a half ago. I always knew I was shot down. I didn't have the context, and I can see why, because it was so traumatic and adrenalizing for me. But the point we're going into is that I did survive the crash. And because Tyrion had intervened, only because they don't usually intervene in the operation, but because I was in danger of losing my soul to the Draco, I heard a voice as I was crashing. He said, "You will release her to these more nefarious people who had got me pinned in the sky and wanted to capture me." Sometime after I've been lying there on the ground, I've been disabled technologically. My body, my biology is also hurt from the crash, and because I've been shot at. This benevolent race of native reptilians picked me up, had never seen anything like me, and brought me back to their underground domicile or underground lair, underground Mars. And they seemed like a very regressed race, like they'd been isolated as a subgroup and were not doing well genetically. And were living underground not because they were not technologically advanced in the manner of having craft and higher technology and these things, but because they had a very spiritually advanced relationship with the planet of Mars. Mars is a living being, a living entity, um, much like Earth is. When it's sort of similar to our indigenous people and practices and our inheritance here on this planet. When you tune in with the energy, it's alive and it can help support creation manifestation, and for them it helps support life support, water, food, even light, and what we might call as sunshine below ground for them to live. And they did that all through what I would call spiritual technology. So in a way they were very advanced. They didn't have what I remember to be telepathy. um, they were yeah, they were a little I don't know how to say this nicely. They were a little stunted. But they treated me well, and I have, like, overall, despite everything that I'll relay here, is like I have pretty good memories. But that's all in context of like what had come before. I had been treated like, how you're treated in the programs. I mean, you're just an asset. They're going to mind control you. They're going to abuse you. They're going to weaponize you in the twinning process. They're going to steal your sovereignty and, steal your body, steal your mind, steal everything, so you can survive the 20 and back. So when I got to the point where they were, kind of rescued me or stole me, remember, people at base can't find me because everything in my tech has been disabled. They don't know where I am. And I'm a clone at this point. They're curious if my biology or my technology can help save their race. Now, I've always said I was cannibalized by this group for parts. Now, I don't mean that they ate me, but I mean like if you're going to cannibalize an old vehicle for parts, you take it apart, you get what you need, right? I always knew that was true. I didn't know that they nearly killed me trying to get my eggs. Um, they weren't familiar with human biology. They'd never seen anything like me. They certainly had never seen a human or a human that had been technologically altered to the extent that I had. They didn't know what they wanted to know. I remember this is communicating this to each other. I could kind of feel their questioning was like, does she have a soul? Now, isn't this interesting? Question around the soul. Well, I
Mm,
almost didn't. I almost lost my soul because the Draco were after me. But, 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 so this then becomes a really interesting story where, by convoluted complex means, they're creating a child, and in part, they're using the spiritual consciousness of the planet plus their own genetics and myself, my eggs, to try and create a new being. There's an interesting part to this. The power generator of that ship that I crashed with, I remember very well. It's like a fractal almost of source. It's behind me, so I'm piloting in the front, and behind me is this massive vortex of energy. It's beautiful. It's made of light. It looks like a big centrifuge of color, and it's oscillating. It's life force energy. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's compelling. Like you could be mesmerized looking into the power generator because it will just take you so many places. They realized as all this was happening, and I was in a kind of gestation process with a child, that I was dying. And they recognized that my consciousness was, and so was the child. They recognized that my consciousness was connected to the craft. But because they were wed and I was dying, so was the life support. They tried to put me into the power generator to keep the birthing process going, to keep my body alive, right? And it wasn't working. Like it was going out. It's like I can feel, and this was just I was in the float tank last night, and I could feel just everything. I like kind of went back into that memory. I could feel the child dying. I could feel myself not living or dead. I'm more on the way out to death, in this clone body, and I can feel the power generator around me like an orb or an egg or almost like a pod. It's
mm,
sheltering me, but it's almost like a heartbeat, or an EKG, and it's like we're starting to flatline. We're going out here. So yeah, what happens is, and my guidance, my team told me this, that power generator from my craft can, under the right conditions and circumstances, function as a portal. What happened here? I'm in danger. The child, for complex reasons that we'll get into, really needed to be born as a way of keeping that race going, I think, and other reasons. But the Light Alliance did intervene, or what we could say my ship on the Galactic Confederation. Now, this again is unusual, but I ended up portaling into the pods on the ship where the child's life was saved. It wasn't so important to save my clone because I've already got my higher aspect, my galactic aspect up on the ship in a stasis pod. All is good. So they took us back to that, which is such a beautiful energy. And I think the pods or the float tank has always reminded me of being home in the pod, right? So that's why,
yeah.
like I'm their best customer. Like I'm in there all the time. Why? Well, because I'm going home. Don't ask me to explain that in 3D terms. But so it has a happier ending in that we're portaling out, we're being, taken into a kinder, gentler, life affirmative environment where the gestation of my son can continue and complete. So that's like the rundown. Like I'm leaving a lot of things out, but that's kind of the gist of the story. If I don't know if you did you follow that okay? I was
Yeah,
sort of like
yeah.
spit out a lot at once, but yeah, yeah. Holy, right? Like, whoa. That's like so much. So much.
Um,
Yeah.
mhm. So in terms of the conception process, have you been privy to that? Was that sort of a insemination type process? Was that kind of, are you aware of the intricacies, I guess, and the finer details of?
There are pieces of that I think I don't want to know. there's pieces of that. I'm like, there's not any way you're going to get me to remember that entirely verbatim. I don't want to know.
Mm.
I do think that they were spiritually advanced enough to know that wedding my genetics with theirs, coupled with again the consciousness of Mars, which I see as also deeply wed to dragon energy for them, for all the
Mm,
planets, and especially for them. I think what I've been shown psychically is there's some kind of distant link for the reptilian races that seems to take them back to a dragon-like essence, which I feel is like the primordial creation spark that gives
mhm,
birth to all things. They're holding, the dragons are really around the, before we got on, you said you'd been, there's a lot of ships around. What I see around and what's been with me for a long time and getting stronger as we've crept into the new year are dragon energies,
mm,
potent
mm.
dragon energy. Anyway, I'm a little off course here with what we're talking about, but it's relevant to why I think they were also harnessing the life force energy of the planet to help save their race, to bring it into a higher octave. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really fascinating because that really connects in, and I'm super aware, or have been for a long time, that our evolution here on Earth impacts or is interlinked
Yeah.
with the evolution of many species, many planets.
Oh,
It's a planetary evolution, not just Earth itself. But it
yes.
feels like we're at the cornerstone of trying to um go through a very fast pace or accelerated thing. But it's interesting
Yeah.
you bring up the dragon energy because that's nothing that I've ever been that connected with until I had a very pronounced dream. I think sometime uh, August, September last year. I'd have to have a look, but I was shown being on the precipice of a consciousness energetic shift and some of the precursor things that would be shown in the lead up to. And I was asked, "Do you want to see this?" And in the dreams, I said, "No, I don't want. I don't want any more markers. I don't want." But it was proceeded to show me anyway, and I was like, "Okay." And one of them was the influx of dragon energy visible in the sky, and the sky
Mm,
turned orange. Mm.
wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so since then, I have felt the influence of the dragon energy become more and more so
Yeah.
at that point in time. So very fascinating. But yeah, that link to I've never thank you for sharing that. I've never sort of put those dots together before.
Well, I never put these dots together. It's so complex. It's a little hard to parse out in linear terms because there's all these little spokes of a wheel or this constellation of meaning that surrounds all of this, and them kind of connecting with the Mars energies, which are connected to dragon energies, which are connected to creation and the solar system. And every planet seems to have at its core a dragon connection. And what you said is exactly true, as I've been shown psychically that it's not just about Earth's ascension, it's the whole solar system, and then we could go into the galaxy. And if one how I've described this on another interview is that if one race or one planet is getting really degraded energetically, psychically, etc., in the ascension pathway, it's going to be a detriment to the whole solar system, for example. So they're with let's say saving this race from extinction, they have a high level spiritual technology that is definitely worth saving and building out and bringing back into like its fullness and wholeness. Um, from the perspective on the ship with Tyrion, it's like we need them. Mars needs them.
Mm,
They're at their core, they're very upper level. They've lost a few notches just because of what's gone on the planet. Mars always seemed like it had survived like a million cataclysms. There's been nuclear explosions and being hit by big junk from the sky and like asteroids and stuff. And I don't know. It always just felt like a beat up planet and all the wars and testing that's gone on there. I mean, Earth is a little bit that way too, but it makes sense in my mind, like let's bring back this race to allow it to really thrive and flourish.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I've come to understand more of like you said, it's not just about Earth's ascension. It's so much bigger than that. And sometimes we might say, I've gotten this question, well, what about these groups that work, the ships in the sky, and what are they actually doing for Earth? Well, sometimes the way they show up and help things is kind of circuitous, like in my case with the child and in trying to let's say allow this race to thrive, for example. That's not going on Earth, but indirectly, perhaps directly, it affects our ascension here on this planet as well. It's not separate. It's not just about Earth, and it's not separate. So that's the way I understand it at the moment anyway. So there's a lot to that. Now, we could also go into, there's so many little ties into my story, but you know, I have dark reptilian energy in my bloodline with my mom's family. It's all German. And there was, my grandfather was a dark magician, black magician. I experienced ritual abuse, and so did my mother at his hands, and he was a guy who was trying to come back to the light, kind of playing both sides of the coin as a reverend. There's a lot of weird, deviant activity in the family as a result of his genealogy and the generations that came before him. Where I'm going with this is that, unbeknownst to me, I went about shifting the DNA in my own heritage, in my own bloodline, and it's become high level white dragon energy from Lyra.
Ugh.
So why would they want me to splice with this child? It's like retroactively, it's feeding this higher dragon energy in both sides of the kid. For me,
Mm,
it's not just human, but you're also getting this higher level dragon. And I always see a white dragon on my left. I've got that dragon and my own iteration when this started happening. And I didn't know you could shift your DNA after this until after this had gone through. And my guides were like, yeah, of course you can do that. Like, oh, is that a thing? You can change your DNA. And get into talking about epigenetics. But I experienced that white Draco dragon body as my own. And I have called her Tia from the years ago, how many years ago that she came in and all this happened with the DNA shift. So I think since then I've really been awakened to my own dragon energy, if you like, from
mm,
that. So it helped give even more context to like why would they pick some random super soldier to go in and help this race? That doesn't make sense. But I've always felt like I was earmarked for the Draco because of my family inheritance, right?
mhm,
The dark aspects. Like I always felt I was owned by them. Who was training me to have a photographic memory and do all these things on the moon? It was the Draco.
mm,
My first interactions with ETs were probably the Greys, but then the Draco were kind of handling me throughout. I always felt like I was owned by them. And it was the Draco that owned me out in the Kuiper Belt toward the end of my service, or the end as far as I know right now. Much later, I'm sold to the Draco and I'm working again as a weaponized asset in protecting their assets out again on Planet X. They were in control of a pretty big portal, and there was a galactic slave trade hub at the time out there. That's no longer the case, but anyway, that's what my kind of job was under the Draco.
mm,
So we have the short reptilians on Mars. We have Rebecca's shifting her DNA into something a lot more, Lyra, the cradle of life, and Lyra and the dragon energies from Lyra. I feel that family around me is really, really loving energy. It's like so soft and like, I don't know, it's just yummy in my system. Yeah. So we have all these little pieces and parts and the Draco, and they're running this soul scalping operation on Mars, and I get in the middle of it and they're trying to shoot me down. And so anyway, so if that hasn't left you with some questions, I'll be quiet now and let you kind of digest all of this.
I think what highlights to me the most is from that perspective, there's a much more intelligent tapestry of the circumstances and situations from a soul perspective level than just some random you got shot down, then
Yeah.
it feels to me like there is this governing overarching soul perspective that you would be
Yeah.
put in that place, which may seem wrong place, wrong time, but right on
No,
time. No.
Right. It was so on point. Like again,
Yeah.
I would say, and everybody's probably tired of me going, "Oh, Rebecca Rose, she's always saying this is part of the soul plan. It doesn't matter what you throw at me." I'm like, I know I signed up for it. You're not going to get me off of that. So, I think ultimately, like this child I'm so connected to, another float I've had between, November and now is like I'm in the pot in the float tank and I'm yelling like don't take my child. I'm crying like you're gonna take my child again. No, I know at some point he was taken from me and that he's been harmed. He did come back in contact with the Draco and I'm still working on this. It's hard for me. I
Hmm.
feel and some timeline at some level, the Draco are still after him, and I feel those kind of dark energies crowding in. And anyway, I don't think it's not a danger to me, but it's just telling me like he's been a wanted kid from the time he came in. So
That really strikes a chord with me. Interesting.
yeah,
Oh, when we talk about the galactic children, the hybrid children, the so many different words, and a lot of women who are expectant of bringing through here, these sort of more star-oriented children.
yeah,
I've had visions for a couple of years now of just the soul aspect of my child that's yet to be born, sort of being in harm's way or trying to navigate going through,
yeah,
yeah,
mm,
and yet to be fully incarnate. I mean, there's obviously there's other aspects of him, but it's so fascinating how precious and special these children truly are and what lengths that they go through. Um,
yeah, yeah. And I know that I could feel how this would be an important, like, or a conversation of interest to you because you're very much attuned with the galactic children coming in and these sort of quantum type conceptions and the circumstances and situations that surround it all and how these children are kind of helping the ascension timeline.
yeah,
Yeah.
massively, massively. So I guess my question to you, and you may not know the answer to this, but why now? Does this, and you may not want to reveal it, has he given you a name, or it's just sort of your son for now? And um,
He's got this sort of blue energy around him and sort of in his skin, and I call him Blue.
mm,
I don't know. His name is like, no, it's not like a human, like, hey, Bobby,
yeah,
like, it's not like that. Um, It's more like built in light codes. Like I feel like in our reality, he might be considered kind of autistic, just drawing like a human, totally human level like
hmm
thing. Like he's
hmm
brilliant on one level and he's slow to develop on another level.
hmm
I
hmm
don't know how to parse that out, but because he has been harmed, he's been through a lot, and I can tell that. And we still don't have full telepathy, although I get these really strong messages, and they kind of land through the solar plexus in the heart, which is always where I'm getting if something is really, really telepathic in communication with another race. That's kind of it's not like up through the third eye, it's down in this sort of deeper area. It's hard to explain, but there's a communication and I would say a deep communion developing between us. And
mm,
he's always glued to me. Like I feel almost like he's right here all the time. He's like clutching me all the time. And it's so interesting too because remember what I said at the beginning, it was like I don't have room for this. I don't have need for this. I do not have want for this. I do not have love for this. Like get this kid out of here. I don't want anything to do with him. So, and that's had to shift a lot. Yeah, and it makes sense too to me why um in the intervening years since I, recalled so much about Mars, I would wake in the night, sometimes crying, like wondering what happened to this race. Well, you know what I was crying about? What happened to my son? Like that never came through when I would wake in the night, but now, you know,
mm,
like what happened to my kid? What the fuck did you do to my child?
mm,
Because you
mm,
have my immediate answer too, but then it's so juxtaposed with that mother's love with like, get this thing out of here. I don't want it. Which is sort of sad, but I get where that comes from. That impulse also comes from because it was really hard on me. And event, I mean, the ways they got into my body killed me. in the end. I mean, that wasn't their intention, and I want to be clear about that. Like, they weren't trying to kill me. They just didn't know a better way to do it. Any other race would have been able to genetically get what they needed and leave me alive, right? Whether it was technology or biology, but they just didn't have the know-how, and I don't think they had any help. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, oh.
Whoa, yeah.
Why do you have any understanding of why he's making contact now? Like, is there a significance to now? Was it just that your psyche wasn't ready to hold that level of information? That is there some importance? Is there something on the horizon? Is it something unique or special for you? Sorry, so many possibilities.
There's so many possibilities, and I think there's an element of a lot of those things. Well, I think one thing is probably I wasn't ready. It's like I have to
Yeah.
digest XYZ first before you like,
Mm,
slam this in front of me too. Like, wow, maybe I've done the work where my heart's ready ultimately to receive him, even though I was resistant in the beginning, to knowing, to receiving him. Like, oh God, not this. Like sometimes I'm really happy when all the space memory is like gone somewhere else. Like I don't have to deal with this. It's away. And I feel like it's to do with the ascension pathway that we're in right now, with things quickening and hey, you need to know about this because it's really connected to everything that's happening in a oblique way, at least. It's connected to what's going on the planet. If we
mhm,
want to talk about ascension, awakening, the up leveling of 3D into 45D, 5D, love, the embrace of love, compassion, empathy, and the communion of species and races. This is part of that story.
mm,
So
mm, mm,
I think it's timely because we're moving into new times. And um, my consciousness maybe couldn't have, let me say it this way. I've had to really lay aside my linear mind. The linear 3D mind is always going to be limited, just like language. English language is always going to be limited to express quantum concepts. And I think it's only now that I could really relax into not being able to conceive of it quite perfectly with 3D thinking. You have to kind of have a quantum like openness to like, well, wait, that doesn't even make sense. How could that even happen? No, no, no. It's big.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
multidimensional and it's totally plausible. So, like where my understanding can be more than 3D, because that's definitely needed to embrace his conception, gestation, how this all started on Mars, finished up on a, you know, Syrian ship in, you know, the solar system or beyond. And then what? So I think it was part of my own spiritual readiness, maybe had to be at a certain level to be able to engage. Yeah.
mhm.
Because before maybe I would have dismissed it and said, that's not even possible. Like, get that out of here too. I don't want that memory. At least I've been able to receive the memory, if not initially my son himself. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you have a sense of where he is now? Like, I know
Well,
that,
that's $1 million
yeah,
question. I
yeah.
feel like we're kind of rewriting the script for his life, or kind of going back through time so that we can go forward. And he will reveal that. Tyrion has said, the more you love the child, the more the story is recalled and revealed. It will come through him. So
Mm,
you have to connect with him.
mm.
It's not going to be divulged by me thinking about it really hard. So,
Yeah.
so
No.
not going to happen that way. The more you think about it, the more elusive it's going to become. Um, so I feel like right now he's just here with me
Hmm.
now and running from the Draco. Even though if you said on another level, like I would say the Draco do not have the hold that they had here, neither do the Greys. That's not a thing that's over. That's not still going on. But we're talking about a quantum reality, then everything is still happening and yet not happening. So it gets
Yeah.
very swimmy, to talk about
Yeah.
it. Like,
And
oh my God, where is he now? Um,
mm, and
yeah.
I can relate to that. And that's kind of feel when I feel into, I think you described that perfectly in terms of where we're at currently in this time right now, just as the overall big picture. It does feel like there has been such a huge change of the guards or unraveling of the dark hold that has been over individuals and humanity. But there is still energy echoes or imprints that are still playing out. So it's sort of like this.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I just kind of feel for myself personally, I've watched the end of this movie so many times that I'm kind of bored.
No, that's a good way to describe it too. I've watched the end of the movie so many times. Yeah. And that really lands with me, like we're still finishing up some karmic stuff here, but the script is written, like where we're headed. And these things just kind of have to shake out. I think his arrival isn't just important to his journey, but it's very important to mine. I think I want to underscore this. This isn't just about him, but it's also about me understanding my own spiritual path, my own
Mm,
love in my heart, to expand the heart frequency and to open that and then, take that to the world, share
mm,
that with other people. So, or, what is the parable like loving the unlovable or loving that which you thought you couldn't, or opening yourself in new ways. This is all part of a newer paradigm for humanity where we're not caught in that black and white duality anymore. We're moving beyond that, and that is the teaching and unity.
mm.
So, yeah.
Thank you for expressing that.
Yeah.
And I can relate on so many levels. Like I've been put in situations where I have had to, yeah, love the unlovable in many ways. I won't go into the details of that, but I can relate to the repulsion and like the only way through this situation is to love more openly.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
powerful force to be able to access and to utilize. And I think that's moving forward as more truth sort of comes to light. I think that's something that we're all going to be asked to harness or work, access within us in many different levels. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts and feelings around hybrid children integrating into Earth? Have you ever, I know through they come talk to you through sessions and things like that. Have you ever
They do. They do.
have you ever seen or had that as a concept that some will at some point in our um reconnecting with our cosmic heritage be sort of integrated here or a part of society moving forward?
Yeah, I think, when the kids started first visiting me, I felt like they were all trying to come into human bodies, like to be born.
Yeah,
And
okay.
and now I don't feel like that's necessarily the case. Like definitely we can talk about all the star-seeded children they're super advanced kids that are coming in now, being born in human form or star-seeded human form. Um, but there's a lot more even that can go on as humanity's consciousness is expanded and more able to welcome them in at a more psychic level, a more energetic level, a more intuitive, multidimensional level. Like they will come and talk to you. They come into client sessions with clients who are really ready and able to receive them. And there's such a um, they're way showers. They teach us so much. And I would want to say too that we may call them children, but some of them feel like they come as very, very old soul consciousness.
Mhm.
Don't you find that as well?
Yeah, yeah. They may be in
Yeah.
little bodies, but they're yeah.
They're in little bodies, but they're like ancient in a way, you know. Yeah, so that's my impression is that it's not limited to 3D, like they're going to come into 3D, although they can, or they can be in, almost interdimensional space where they're here for those who see and those who can interact and those who are ready
Mhm.
to receive
Mhm.
them. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of different ways that can play out. Or maybe you end up having your avatar, galactic avatar, ends up having a child that's not actually born in your physical body, but that you have. We know people who have sets of children out there somewhere, and you can relate on both levels. Like you're here doing your human thing, but there's also, you have family and children
Mhm.
through your galactic family out there.
Hmm. Mm. Yeah.
So it feels very timeless to me, like it's not pinned down by 2025 or wherever we are in our path, like it's beyond time. Kind of, how we are talking about the dragon energies being primordial. There's something very, maybe the word I'm looking for is eternal.
Mm.
And of course, my mind goes into like the innocence of the children and what is that signal symbolically. We look at Earth and what's happened to children on this planet, what happened to myself and the programs and with my family, and almost like harbingers or handmaidens to innocence being restored on our planet and beyond.
Mm.
So something, I mean, there's something kind of elegant and poetic inside of that, I feel. Yeah.
Beautiful. I just had this vision as you're talking. It's like flipping something completely from inside out or inverted, flipping it the right way up, and just, oh,
Yeah.
mm,
I feel that I was meeting with a client, I think this was just last night or the night before, really recent client that goes out at night to rescue children from the dumps, right? Like that's kind of what his
mm,
soul plan has been. And I said, you have, and I could see even before I knew this, like there was all these galactic children in his field. And he said that, there, some of those seem to be galactic children coming back in some way, like almost they incarnated here to help clear something. And then they come back and they're,
mm,
I don't want to put too much of a, light spin on it, but some of them maybe have come in to it's hard to say this, like help liberate the planet, but to go through certain experiences and to leave it a lighter place. And when they're liberated, they can come back in a more star-seeded form or from a quantum space. Yeah.
mm, mm.
I don't know if that makes any sense in your mind, but um, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think death and grief has been a huge theme for me over the last 12 months. And what I've been shown is every time there is a soul like a powerful soul that transitions, it they take with us, they take with them um, a layer of density and darkness that couldn't have been cleared
Yeah.
any other way. And they have so much more potency and capability to take with them as they transition to create light and space and openness in this world, in this planet,
Mhm.
to then do what they need to from the other side and then make that preparation to return in some
Yeah.
capacity or form. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? Like, and it occurs to me too, as I'm just resting here and listening to you, that, my son comes in not just because he needs my help and we need to be reunited, but it's also part of my own, I think, healing
mm,
path, right? Like I guess I've said that different, maybe in a different way of opening my heart even more, helping my heart heal and to receive him. But it's like he's a teacher to me too, right? So there's there's more to unfold. Like I haven't sometimes with new memory, like I really wait till it's all really unpacked and I have it like completely under control and dialed. And this is like I'm just gonna blurt it out. I don't know. I'm still learning about this and still retrieving. There's a lot more to come. Like this is a whole nother book and a whole nother chapter happening here. Um, yeah, and seeing how this dovetails, like so I don't actually 100% know what happened to him after he was created or gestated in the pod on the ship with me in my galactic form. um yeah, I'm like, okay, I need a little more, but it's also like, okay, I bit off a really big chunk and I'm trying to chew it. I can't do more right now. I got to kind of process this. So I'm still kind of yeah, it takes time. I think the more complex emotionally the memory is, and this, like it can take more time to kind of sort it at a human level, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. And I can see too why this particular arena or this particular aspect of my Mars memories, because I have so many, but the what happened when I was on patrol and then everything that led up to the crash, and then the reptilians taking me, and all of that had to come in like segments, and like it could, for me at least, could not be dropped in fully formed, because it would, you just lose your mind. It would be too much. At least for me, it would be too much for my psyche to kind of hold.
Mm, mm.
Um, yeah,
Oof.
yeah,
Can we, I would love to talk a little bit about the pods because that
yeah,
has been so prevalent for me for many years. And I find that there are times where I feel less incorporated here when I tune into like, where am I? And I have this question of like, where am I? Bring me back here. I always go and connect and I'm in the pod. I'm just dating myself in the pod and it has so many multi-function purposes that
yeah.
I've explored and understood over time.
Well
It's
said. It's like
yeah.
so beyond what I can conceive of in my human mind. It's like way bigger than that. Um, Very well said. I so 1,000,000% agree with that. Because you'd say, well, why would you bring a child to a pod if the kid isn't fully formed? How is it gonna, like, but the pod is intelligent. The craft itself, or the big mothership that I'm on, it's a fractal of the mothership, and it's intelligent. It's living, it's intelligent, it's advanced, it's alive, it's conscious, and it knows what's needed. That's why we're in the pods, because it's a healing tank, it's a birthing tank, it's a portal. It can take us to other realms, other dimensions. It can upshift, downshift. It can change form. It can, it's like, oh my God, life support. It's everything. It's like this
Mhm.
is the womb of life as I feel it. It's so yummy and juicy around me when I go into that. It's so cozy. It feels
Yeah,
good.
it's a comforting space. I have been shown one of the functionalities of the pod itself or my experience, and I've delved into this, and I guess a lot of a handful of client sessions have revealed this is when we are perhaps in the programs or just as a soul fragmenting into different realities. That's the pod is where it contains um, the core threats, if you will. It's like that's like you may be in the pod, but you're then fractaled out into different realities to
Yeah.
have different experiences or to go on different missions. And then when that experience is up, you return back into the pod, and then it kind of heals or soothes any sort of spiky energy that you may pull back in from that experience. But it's also when we're integrating more of our soul essence or consciousness here into this physical realm, that's kind of the feed through where it comes from directly is from that place where we pull in all elements and aspects, or we can access that and we slowly drip feed that down here into this realm. Does that does
Yeah.
that make sense?
It does. And it's like I said, it's swimmy for the 3D mind to kind of, oh, what? But yeah, at a higher level, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, I and this has come through more and more clearly, like the way that I'm tethered there is very, very clear now. It feels like it's through the solar plexus, and etherically there's almost like this um it's linkage. It's like a linked thread, if you like, but it's also through the solar plexus. I feel like this, it's almost like the crystals.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, it's almost like a power generator of a different sort.
Mm.
There's just a few of them. It's almost like I'm in my vision, psychic vision, it's like appearing as if a little bit underwater, but I think that's because it's something that feels viscous about the pod experience. I'm not sure, but anyway, there's something upper dimensional going on that keeps me tethered at the solar plexus, particularly. Yeah, just at least for me, that's my understanding at the moment.
Mm.
Yeah, like keeping life alive within me, and also kind of like an umbilical cord, you know,
Yeah, very
right up
much so.
there. Yeah, there's some kind of. Sometimes I feel like a a crystal technology or the intelligence is coming from that arena.
Mm.
And when I feel the area in the ship where the pods are, there's all this plant life and like, I don't know if we could call it trees there's all this greenery and it's living and pulsing with life. It's not like this dead space, but it's really, really alive,
Mhm.
which I like feeling. I like feeling that. And feel like I'm in communion or connection or conversation with a lot of, I don't know, more than one environment or more than one intelligence as I'm there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I feel like that the conversation, let's say, with the pod and my experience there will continue to deepen over time. I
Yeah.
think at first when I was again maybe a little I have this habit of being resistant to new information. It's like I just want what's old and familiar and comfortable. Um, like at first it was sort of difficult to conceive of the pods or to feel into them or like I can't do both. Like how the fuck am I supposed to live in both realms? I can't. Um, but that's become more and more like integrated. I maybe said that already. Like it's integrated and it's makes sense and I understand
Mm.
and I welcome it. I welcome it. It's not like fighting it. Um, I think before I felt like if I allow myself to go completely into experiencing that, even psychically, like I won't be able to live well here, and I need to be able to live well here while
Mm.
I'm here. Like I'll just be floating in some, liminal space and unable to like stay embodied or something. And that's not what I found. It actually helps me live better here to like face the pod experience and the ship experience and all my like, friends and family up there. It makes my life better here and I can live well
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
metabolizing both. But maybe that's taken some time for me. That wasn't always the case. So,
Mm. And I find going, like consciously going to the pods can be really soothing and healing and help the integration phase and process, especially if there's like overwhelm in the nervous system or there's a lot just going on. That feels like a very safe place to go and be cocooned from a lot of the static, the noise, the overdrive that
yeah,
can occur. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, and do you sense too? I mean, like timelines can be really shifted. You can go journey through, they had all this complex technology at Montauk and, through Earth-based programs to like sort out time stuff and to use it for military, building empires and seeing what would happen and for um, conquest and so on, conquest of empire. But
Mm.
it's like it's not if you have if you're beyond 3D, it's not as complex. And I feel like through the pods, you can very easily look at outcomes and different realities and journey into different realms and dimensions and so on. Yeah.
Curious question. Have you ever kind of remote viewed in and around the pods, not just in your own, but the pods surrounding you and just had a sense of people that you know down here that may be in the vicinity or next to you?
Oh, interesting question. I don't really feel that's interesting. I don't really feel humans in there. The ship that I'm on has done a lot of rescue missions. If there's been a war or a planet destroyed or there needs to be some kind of intervention, they might swing by and pick up whoever, refugee ship. And sometimes it's for medical help,
Mm.
that I feel other beings inside the pods.
Mm.
Um, but I don't really feel, well, what's funny too is like I'm not really a human up there. I'm an Andromedan in the pod. Like our ship is mixed race, so there's a lot of different
Yeah.
beings on it. I mean, Tyrion's a Nordic from Procyon, not originally from Procyon, but his people a long time ago, were in a place where they became refugees and went to Procyon. Anyway, there's a lot of that that's gone on in the galaxy. But yeah, I mean, I will pay more attention to this. Sometimes I'm so like overcome with my human need to just be in the pod. Like just take me to the pod. I don't know. I need to be feeling that experience that I'm not like always looking very definitely. But now that you've mentioned it, I'll see it more clearly. Um, or sometimes it can be used to like cauterize something a little negative if they, picked up somebody that's maybe a little,
Mm.
you uh, maybe a little negative, that they
Mm.
can put in a pot and then it's inert, they can transport wherever and get it out of there, or do whatever needs to happen. Um, yeah. But it's like you said, I think we're both agreeing that it's very, like we could say multi-purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Mm.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, and I've had several encounters or connections with my children being in the pod. So yeah, it's very, has a lot of function to it, probably more
Yeah.
so than I've explored. Just, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I like for me, I know I'm a little, as I said, I can be limited by my 3D understanding, and maybe my mind's not quite open enough to metabolize the many, many things it can do. Just like the ship, I mean, the ship being polymorphous, it can shift dimensions and it can shift its color and it can be cloaked and it can be this and it can be that. Like I said, it's not yes or no, this or that. It's both and.
Yeah,
There's a lot
yeah.
of things that can go on. It's not limited. Um, yeah.
So on the topic of being very busy in the outer atmosphere of Earth right now, I
Mm.
guess I have to, if we're gonna like kind of change it up or bring it in full circle,
Yeah.
um, obviously there's been a lot of sightings and, all the drones and the orbs, but I'm talking kind of beyond that right now because to me, when I feel or tune in to what's going on out there, it just feels like ship upon ship upon ship upon ship. It's like chock-a-block up there, and I kind of giggle to myself because I'm like, oh, there's lot of spectators coming in quite close. There's obviously this a lot of level of interest as to perhaps what is happening here. Do you have any sense of that, or have you had any sense of that? And how does that tie into potentially what you may feel for this coming year of
Yeah. I mean, when I'm pause and feel into that again psychically, I can feel that, and I'm wondering if that's also um, part of why, the memory around my son came in because we're like all hands on deck. We got to move
mm,
now.
mm, mm,
We need all the information we can get and all of the help that we can get. Um, I haven't tuned into it, I don't think, as much as I go through times when I feel that. I've been attuned to a lot of dragon energy, like I said, it was like massive, and they seem like they're really active, and it could be synergized with the frequency of, more ships in the atmosphere, more dragon energies, activated and accessible by human consciousness and human minds right now. And the story of us kind of reclaiming our origins, our DNA, our inheritance, and coming back into our human power and becoming more coherent with other races, other planetary bodies in our solar system and beyond. Like it's just all part of
mm,
the quickening pace that I'm observing. I'm curious about how the new U.S. 4 years is gonna
mm,
be. I think I feel pretty hopeful about that, and more disclosure, more things in favor of our multidimensional reality surfacing, and so on. So, and in Alaska, I used to live down on the Mexican border, and I saw a lot of things down out in West Texas where I was living at the time. In Alaska, there's some anomalies up here too, but I don't know how to compare it to what, maybe people can leave a comment, what are you guys noticing about the prevalence of ships and psychic connection that we might be having through meditation and through our visions and dreams and night journeying
mm,
also. So, yeah.
mm.
Oh my goodness. A lot in this conversation. Like it feels like we've been talking for a long time. But I mean in real terms we haven't been, but because we've cycled through such big, the this potent drama, the display here in this realm. That's what all the ships are coming in for, is like watching the human landscape, like what's happening here. Um
Feels
yeah,
that.
there's such big talking about big, like these big wide angle lens, big picture view, sort of stuff, you know, and yeah, I guess to be continued. There's more. I mean, for me, there'll be more with the child and the underpinnings of Mars on its ascension pathway, I guess we could say too.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So, mm,
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank
mm,
you for coming on and sharing all of that. And I know I look forward to the next conversation as more starts to unravel. And I just get this sense of my work and your work sort of interlinking even more so in terms of the whole child component is so prevalent at the moment, for
yeah,
me and a lot of my clients. And I feel like this year is going to be the kickstart. I don't think that they're all going to come through en masse just in one year, but I feel like the trickling through for a lot of those who've been waiting a long time to incarnate or come through or connect in some capacity is really starting to come in and connect. So I
yeah.
appreciate that. I appreciate. So you've got something quite exciting up and coming. You've been stepping in
Yeah,
role.
so yeah, so I have another awakening course that's starting January 16th. So a week from we're recording here and it's a week out. January 16th, I'm starting another group of teaching, for 10 weeks, ten sessions of 1.5 to 2 hours with me. The foundation really based on meditation, intuitive development, and developing our spiritual capacity, really like stepping into our fullness, as spiritual beings here on this earth and helping us live better here on the planet right now. So working a lot with the heart and with psychic ability and exercises to develop intuition and all of these things and going on deep, guiding deep journeys for people so that they can explore that more multidimensional realm in a safe environment and so on and so on. So that's all starting in a week. I'm very excited to be for a long time, I was mostly doing one-on-one sessions. And while that's still continuing, you can still book session packages and one of a kind, sessions with me to dive deeper in one-on-one. It's really nice to have the group sort of community involvement and people supporting each other in this kind of yeah, like the classroom setting on Zoom. So that's been really awesome. And I like that I've been able to, or being called and answered the call to provide that to people or that support to people. It's like getting a lot of me, like at a pretty reasonable rate.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's cost effective to do it that way and like meeting other people who are maybe going through the same thing or have the same questions or, where we can all be more ourselves. Because I feel like so much of, myself, I feel like I go through the world in my reality here in Alaska and nobody knows, we don't talk about this stuff. Like, oh yeah, I have my Mars hybrid child with me. Like, we're not going into that.
Just down at
Sorry.
the grocery store.
Just down at the groceries, like, give me my whatever, like, I'm out. But it can be so nice to be in a group where like whatever you're experiencing is welcome here. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I will
So,
put all the details in the description box below and,
yeah.
connect for Rebecca. And yeah, that sounds amazing. 10 weeks. So
Yeah. Yeah. I did the first one in the fall and that was really successful and people had a lot of transformative experiences, which is so beautiful. Wherever people are on the journey, I feel like I myself, I need support too. We all need to be with help on the path, right? We didn't come here to do this alone. So,
yeah, that
yeah,
that the African proverb you get, um oh, I can't even think of it now, but together you go further is the essence of that. Yeah,
yeah.
important.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. We'd love to hear your comments and, perhaps if there's anything that we haven't covered off that you'd like us to explore deeper next time, please put that in the description box below. And Rebecca, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's such a great place to chat about the child theme because that's like, one of your heart topics for sure. Yeah,
Mm,
thank you.
beautiful. Well, thank you everyone and much love until next time. Goodbye.